can't just walk away with this.
We're not walking away. We're finalizing the transfer. It's all legal now.
The toast was still warm when my wife ended our marriage. She didn't even look up from spreading butter across the bread, just said it like she was mentioning the weather forecast. I've decided we're in an open relationship now. I'm already seeing someone. I stood there holding my coffee mug, watching her bite into that toast like she'd just told me we needed milk from the store. The clock on the wall ticked. Our cat walked across the counter. Ruth chewed, completely calm, like this was the most natural announcement in the world. My brain went through about 15 different responses in the span of 3 seconds. Anger, confusion, the urge to throw that mug against the wall and watch it shatter. But I didn't do any of that. Instead, I set the mug down carefully on the counter, picked up my keys from the hook by the door, and walked out. Didn't slam the door. Didn't say a single word. Just left. As the story unfolds, take a moment to like, hit the hype button, subscribe, and write in the comments. Would you forgive her or walk away? I sat in my truck in the port parking lot for 35 minutes, just staring at the shipping containers stacked in rows like giant metal building blocks, watching the cranes pivot slowly against the gray morning sky. This was my world. Logistics coordination. Making sure cargo got from ships to trucks to warehouses without anything breaking, getting lost, or falling through the cracks. I was good at it. I could track a container through 6 different transfer points and 3 countries without losing a single piece of paperwork. But apparently, I couldn't track my own wife. My phone buzzed. Erin Caldwell, Ruth's best friend since their college days. The message was short. She just told me everything. I always thought she didn't deserve you. Dinner tonight? My treat. I stared at those words for a long time. Then I typed back, pick you up at 7. If Ruth thought she'd opened our marriage, she'd just opened the gates to something much worse. She'd handed me clarity, purpose, and permission to stop playing nice. By the time 7 o'clock rolled around, I'd already started forming the skeleton of a plan. I picked up Erin from her apartment downtown, and we drove to this Harbor View restaurant where business people went to pretend they knew how to relax. The hostess seated us by the window. Outside, the port stretched out like a miniature city, all lights and machinery and endless movement. Inside, Erin ordered wine before I could even look at the menu. How long have you known? I asked once the waitress left. Erin swirled her glass, watching the wine catch the light. She had sharp features, dark hair cut short, and eyes that didn't miss much. She worked as a freelance writer, mostly local interest pieces and the occasional investigative blog post that got picked up by bigger outlets. I suspected for 3 months, Erin said. She confirmed it this morning, right after you left. Called me all excited, like she'd just gotten a promotion or won the lottery. 3 months. I tested the timeline in my head. 3 months ago was August. It started when she got assigned to the Harbor Trust bank account, Erin continued. You know how Ruth is. Put her anywhere near money and status, and she starts getting ideas. The guy's name is Brandon Pierce, Erin said. Senior manager at Harbor Trust. VP of VIP client relations or something like that. Handles their high net worth accounts, corporate partnerships, the whole prestige angle. Brandon Pierce. I committed the name to memory. Tell me everything, I said. Erin pulled out her phone, slid it across the table. The screen showed a text conversation between her and Ruth. I scrolled through it, my jaw getting tighter with every message. Ruth bragging about expensive dinners at places I'd never heard of. Ruth talking about hotel rooms with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor. Ruth describing some corporate cruise where everything changed between her and Brandon. When was the cruise? I asked. 6 weeks ago, mid-September. Harbor Trust does it every year for their VIP clients and senior staff. 3 days on a chartered yacht, all luxury, all networking. The advertising agencies that work with them get to send their account managers. Spouses don't get invitations. 6 weeks ago, Ruth had told me she was going to a mandatory team-building retreat. She'd come back with a tan and this distant look in her eyes. I handed Erin's phone back. The waitress brought our food. I forced myself to eat, to go through the motions. Logistics had taught me that. Maintain your energy, keep your systems running, even when everything's falling apart. "Why are you telling me all this?" I asked. Erin set down her fork. "Because Ruth's been my friend for 10 years, and in those 10 years, I've watched her treat you like you're some kind of placeholder. You've supported her through 3 different job changes, covered the bills when her parents cut back on the handouts, put up with her moods and her constant need for validation, and this is how she repays you. I'm not okay with it." "Good." Erin leaned back in her chair. "So what are you going to do?" I cut into my steak. "I don't know yet." That was a lie. I was already sketching the plan in my head, routing it through different scenarios like I was plotting a complex shipment. Ruth wanted to trade up. She was going to learn what it felt like to have everything she thought was secure suddenly shift out from under her feet. Before I dropped Erin off at her apartment, she turned to me in the truck and said, "Whatever you're planning, Dan, I'm in. Just promise me you won't do anything that'll land you in trouble." "I won't." "I mean it. No crazy stunts. Keep it clean." "Everything I do," I said, "will be completely legal." Erin smiled. "Then let's make her regret every decision that led to this moment." I drove home that night with a head full of plans and a chest full of cold determination. Ruth was already in bed when I got there, pretending to be asleep. I didn't bother turning on the lamp, just got ready for bed in the dark and lay there staring at the ceiling. If Ruth wanted openness, I'd open the floor right out from under her feet. I found the pregnancy test 2 days later. Thursday morning, Ruth had already left for work. I was getting ready to head out when I noticed the bathroom trash can was overflowing. I pulled the bag out, and that's when I saw it. Pregnancy test. Positive. 2 bright pink lines, just sitting there on top, barely covered by some wadded-up tissue paper. My first instinct was to storm out, drive to her work, and confront her. My second instinct was to call Brandon Pierce's office. I did neither. Instead, I carefully put the test back exactly how I'd found it, arranged the tissue paper the same way, set the trash bag back in the can. Then I went to work, like it was any other Thursday. At my desk, I opened our joint bank account on my computer. Ruth and I had combined our finances when we got married 5 years ago. She'd insisted on it, said it showed trust and commitment. Now I could see every transaction she'd made for the past 3 months. Hotel charges on nights when she'd told me she was working late, the Harborview Grand, the Maritime Inn, the Oceanside Suites, all expensive places, all downtown, all within walking distance of Harbor Trust Bank's main office. Restaurant bills that made my stomach turn. $200 dinners. $300 brunches. Places I'd never been able to afford. And then there was the cruise package. $3,200, charged to our account on September 10th. The charge description said Harbor Trust Annual VIP Cruise, Client Services Division. She hadn't even bothered to hide it. She'd used our joint account, our shared money, to pay for a romantic getaway with another man. I downloaded all the statements, saved them to a flash drive, and tucked it into my desk drawer. Evidence, documentation, the foundation of whatever I was going to build. Around lunch, I walked down to the systems room where Ronnie Price spent most of his time. Ronnie was one of those guys who looked like he lived on energy drinks and spite. He'd been working port systems for 15 years, and there wasn't a database or public record he couldn't access if you gave him enough time. "Need a favor," I said. Ronnie didn't look up from his screen. "Does it involve my ex-wife?" "No." "Then I'm listening." I gave him the basics. Brandon Pierce, Harbor Trust Bank, the cruise. Ronnie's fingers flew across the keyboard. "Give me 2 hours," he said. I went back to my desk and tried to focus on work, but my mind kept drifting back to that pregnancy test, those bank statements. 2 hours later, Ronnie appeared at my desk with a folder full of printouts. "Brandon Pierce," he said, dropping the folder in front of me. 38 years old. Been with Harbor Trust for 12 years. VP of VIP Client Relations. Makes good money, drives a BMW, lives in a condo in the Harbor District. All public record. I opened the folder. The first page was a professional headshot from Harbor Trust's website. Brandon Pierce looked exactly like I'd imagined. Expensive suit, styled hair, predatory smile. Harbor Trust's annual VIP cruise, Ronnie continued. September 14th through 16th, public event calendar filed with the Port Authority for docking permits. And here's the roster of attendees. He flipped to another page. Halfway down, Ruth Kirk, Junior Account Manager, Spectrum Advertising. 3 lines below, Brandon Pierce, VP Client Relations, Harbor Trust Bank. They weren't trying to hide it, Ronnie said. This was all filed officially. There's more, Ronnie said. Pierce has been written up twice in the past 4 years, both times for inappropriate conduct with junior staff at companies Harbor Trust partners with. Nothing stuck, probably because the bank has good lawyers, but it's in the public court records. He's done this before. Multiple times. Your wife isn't special to him, Dan. She's a pattern. After work, I drove to Harbor Trust Bank's main branch downtown. At 5:30, Brandon Pierce walked out. I recognized him immediately. Same expensive suit, same arrogant posture. He was talking on his phone, laughing, completely relaxed. Pierce walked to the parking garage. I waited 5 minutes, then followed. Found his car easily, BMW 5. Series navy blue, vanity plate that read banking. I didn't do anything to it, not yet, just walked past, memorized the plate number, noted which level he parked on, information gathering. But as I walked back to my truck, I felt something settle in my chest. A cold, focused determination. Ruth wanted to start a new life. Brandon Pierce wanted to keep playing his games. Fine. Let them try. Because I was going to systematically dismantle everything they'd built, and I was going to do it so carefully, so legally, so precisely, that neither of them would see it coming until it was too late to stop. Ruth came home late on Friday night, around 10. I was on the couch with my laptop, pretending to watch a show while actually reviewing all the documentation Ronnie had pulled together. Bank statements, event rosters, public records, everything that proved what Ruth had been doing, all laid out in neat, organized files. She dropped her purse on the kitchen counter, kicked off her heels. "Hey, have you eaten?" "Earlier," I said, not looking up from the screen. "Oh, okay." She hesitated in the doorway between the kitchen and living room. "I was thinking we should probably talk about what I said the other morning." "Sure, talk." Ruth sat in the chair across from me, tucked her legs under herself. She was wearing one of her work outfits, a gray dress that probably cost more than she wanted me to know. Her hair was different too, highlighted, professional, the kind of look that said she was trying to fit into a world that was just slightly out of her reach. "I know it was abrupt," she started, "the way I told you, but I'd been thinking about it for a while and I just felt like we needed to be honest with each other." "Honest?" I finally looked at her. "Okay, let's be honest. How long have you been sleeping with Brandon Pierce?" Her face went pale. "How did you—" "How long, Ruth?" 3 months, maybe 4. It wasn't supposed to happen. We just connected and things developed and you decided to announce it over breakfast like you were telling me about a dentist appointment." I closed my laptop, set it aside. "Did you think I'd just accept it? That I'd smile and nod and let you do whatever you wanted? I thought you'd understand. We've been together since we were in our 20s, Dan. Don't you ever wonder what else is out there? Don't you ever feel like we settled too early?" "No," I said flatly. "I don't. Because I actually committed to this marriage. I didn't spend 3 months lying to you while I tried out someone else." Ruth's expression shifted from nervous to defensive. "You're making this sound worse than it is. Brandon and I have something real, something mature. We both agreed that modern relationships don't have to be so restrictive. Modern relationships. I laughed, and it came out harsh. Is that what you're calling it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you met some banker who wined and dined you on company money, and you convinced yourself it was love so you wouldn't feel guilty about cheating. I'm not guilty about anything. I was honest with you. You were honest after you already did it. That's not honesty, Ruth. That's just getting caught and trying to control the narrative. She stood up, angry now. I knew you wouldn't understand. I knew you'd make this into some big drama instead of just accepting that people change, relationships evolve. Is the baby his? Ruth froze. What? The pregnancy test in the bathroom trash. Is it his? I watched her face cycle through shock, panic, and then calculation. She was trying to figure out how to spin this, what story would minimize the damage. I don't know, she said finally. It could be either of you. Either of us. I stood up, grabbed my keys. I'm going out. When I get back, I want you to really think about what you've done. Not just the affair, not just the pregnancy, but the way you've treated this marriage, this commitment, like it was something disposable. Because, Ruth, I promise you, actions have consequences. I left before she could respond. Drove around for 2 hours, just trying to process the confirmation that the baby might not even be mine. Trying to contain the rage that kept threatening to overwhelm the cold, calculated planning I'd been doing. By the time I got back, Ruth was in bed with the lights off. I slept on the couch, didn't trust myself to be in the same room with her. Saturday morning, I called Aaron. I need your help, I said. Professional help. You still have contacts at the local business journal? Some. What are you thinking? I'm thinking that Brandon Pierce has a history of inappropriate relationships with employees from partner companies. And I'm thinking that if someone were to anonymously tip off a reporter about potential ethics violations at Harbor Trust Bank, it might be worth investigating. You want me to leak this? Not yet. But I want you ready. When the time comes, when I have all the pieces in place, I need someone who can make sure the story gets told publicly. Can you do that? There was a pause on the other end. Then, yes, absolutely. Just tell me when. I will. And Aaron, thank you for taking my side in this. You don't have to thank me. Ruth's my friend, but what she's doing is wrong. Someone needs to hold her accountable. After I hung up, I made a list. A literal, physical list of every step I needed to take to completely dismantle what Ruth and Brandon had built. It wasn't enough to just expose the affair. That would hurt Ruth's reputation, sure, but it wouldn't really change anything. She'd cry, apologize, maybe lose some friends. Then she'd move on, probably still end up with Brandon if he stuck around through the scandal. No, I needed to make sure that both of them faced real consequences. Professional consequences, financial consequences, the kind of losses that would follow them for years, and I needed to do it without breaking a single law. Step 1. Document everything. I already had the bank statements, the event rosters, Ronnie's research, but I needed more. I needed proof that Brandon had used his position at Harbor Trust to pursue Ruth, that the relationship had started in a professional context and violated bank ethics policies. Step 2. Set up the exposure carefully. One big reveal wouldn't work. I needed multiple pressure points, multiple moments where Ruth and Brandon's story fell apart in different ways. Professional scrutiny, social humiliation, financial complications, all timed perfectly so they couldn't contain the damage. Step 3. Make sure I came out of this clean. No aggressive acts, no illegal activity, nothing that could come back on me. I'd play this by the book, use only information that was legally obtained, make sure every step I took was defensible. And step 4, walk away with my head high. Because this wasn't about winning Ruth back. This wasn't about salvaging our marriage. This was about making sure she understood that you don't get to blow up someone's life without consequences. Monday morning, I stopped by Harbor Trust Bank on my way to work. Told the receptionist I wanted to schedule a consultation about business accounts for the logistics company. She set me up with an appointment for Wednesday afternoon, 3 o'clock, with Brandon Pierce himself. He handles our corporate clients, she said brightly. You'll love him. Very professional. I'm sure I will, I said. Wednesday came. I took a late lunch, put on my best shirt, drove downtown to that glass tower where Brandon Pierce worked. The receptionist sent me up to the 12th floor, directed me to a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor. Brandon was sitting behind a massive desk, typing something on his computer. He looked up when I walked in, flashed that practiced smile. Mr. Kirk? Brandon Pierce. Please have a seat. I sat, looked around the office. Expensive art on the walls, leather chairs, a coffee table with what looked like real marble. This was the world Ruth wanted to be part of, this polished, corporate, money-soaked environment that probably felt like success to someone who'd grown up comfortable but not rich. So, Brandon said, you're interested in our corporate banking services? Actually, I said, I'm interested in talking about my wife. His smile faltered, just for a second, but I saw it. I'm sorry? Ruth Kirk, Junior Account Manager at Spectrum Advertising, works on your bank's marketing account. You two went on a cruise together last month. Brandon's expression went carefully neutral. Mr. Kirk, I don't think this is an appropriate conversation to have in a professional setting. Where would be more appropriate? Your car? One of those hotels you've been taking her to? I think you should leave. In a minute. I leaned back in my chair, kept my voice calm. I just wanted to see you in person. Wanted to know what kind of man thinks it's acceptable to pursue someone's wife, to use his corporate position to impress her, to spend company money on romantic dinners and getaways. Wanted to see if you'd look me in the eye. Brandon stood up. I'm going to call security. Go ahead. We're just talking. But before I go, I want you to know something. I stood too, walked to the door, then turned back. You picked the wrong marriage to destroy, because I'm not the kind of person who just accepts this and moves on. I'm the kind of person who plans, who builds cases, who waits for exactly the right moment to make sure everyone involved gets what they deserve. I walked out before he could respond, took the elevator down, got in my truck and drove back to work. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from anticipation. Brandon Pierce now knew I existed, knew I wasn't going to quietly disappear, and that knowledge would eat at him, make him nervous, make him start second-guessing every decision. Good. Let him worry, because what was coming next was going to be so much worse than worry. Ruth cornered me Thursday evening when I got home from work. She'd been leaving me alone for the most part since our fight on Friday, sleeping in the guest room, trying to give me space like that was going to fix anything. We need to discuss the pregnancy, she said. I set my keys on the counter, started pulling together something for dinner. Okay, discuss. I made an appointment for a paternity test. Once the baby's born, we can find out for sure who the father is. Once the baby's born, so you're keeping it. Yes. She said it defiantly, like she expected me to argue. I'm keeping the baby regardless of who the father is. And if it's Brandon's, then we'll figure it out. He's willing to be involved, to support the child financially and emotionally. I turned to look at her. How generous of him. Does he know you're still living here? Still married to me? Or did you conveniently leave that part out when you were discussing your future co-parenting arrangement? He knows. We've talked about everything. Brandon's been very understanding about the situation. I'm sure he has. I went back to making dinner, focusing on chopping vegetables so I wouldn't focus on how much I wanted to put my fist through the wall. Here's what's going to happen, Ruth. You're going to keep living here until you figure out your own arrangements. I'm not kicking you out, but I'm also not pretending this marriage still exists. You ended it. You don't get to walk it back now. I'm not trying to walk it back. I just want us to be civil, mature about this. Mature. I set down the knife, turned to face her fully. You want mature? Here's mature. I'm going to file for divorce next week. You can stay in the house until you find your own place or until the divorce is finalized, whichever comes first. We'll split assets according to whatever the lawyer says is fair. And you and Brandon can live happily ever after, consequences free. Ruth's face crumpled. You're really giving up on us that easily? Easily. Ruth, you announced you were sleeping with someone else over breakfast. You've been lying to me for months. You might be pregnant with another man's child. What part of that suggests I should fight to save this marriage? I just thought, I don't know. I thought maybe we could work through this. Find a new normal. The only new normal I'm interested in, I said, is one where you're not my problem anymore. She left the kitchen crying. I finished making dinner, ate alone at the counter while I reviewed more of Ronnie's research on my phone. Brandon Pierce's history, Harbor Trust's corporate policies, the timeline of events that led to Ruth and Brandon ending up on that cruise together. Everything I needed was falling into place. Now I just needed to start applying pressure in exactly the right spots. Friday afternoon, I called Spectrum Advertising, the agency where Ruth worked, asked to speak to someone in human resources about concerns regarding an employee's conduct on a client account. The HR representative who took my call was professional but cautious. Can I ask what this is regarding? It's regarding Ruth Kirk and her relationship with a client from Harbor Trust Bank. I have documentation that suggests the relationship may have begun during professional interactions and may violate your agency's ethics policies about client fraternization. There was a long pause. Can you send us this documentation? I can, but I'd like to remain anonymous. This is a personal situation, and I don't want it traced back to me. That's unusual. Typically, we need to know the source of allegations like this. I understand, but the documentation I have is legitimate. Bank statements, event rosters, timeline analysis, all legally obtained. If you investigate and find nothing, then no harm done. But if I'm right, then your agency has an employee who's been using her work assignment to conduct an inappropriate relationship with a senior client executive. Another pause. Send us what you have. We'll review it. I hung up, pulled together a packet of information. The cruise roster showing Ruth and Brandon both attending. Credit card statements from our joint account showing hotel and restaurant charges that aligned with times Ruth claimed to be working on the Harbor Trust account. A timeline document that laid it all out cleanly, professionally, without emotional language or accusations. Just facts. Just evidence. Just enough to make Spectrum's HR department start asking questions. I sent the packet from an anonymous email account, then deleted the account. Clean, untraceable, legal. That same Friday evening, I went to Ruth's favorite coffee shop downtown, the place she went every Saturday morning to work on her laptop and feel like a professional creative. I knew the owner slightly, had chatted with her a few times while waiting for Ruth to finish her overpriced latte. "Hey, Dan," the owner said when I walked in. "Ruth's not here yet. Actually, I wanted to talk to you. About Ruth." The owner's expression shifted. "Is everything okay?" "Not really. Ruth and I are separating. It's messy, and I'm trying to handle it as gracefully as possible. But I wanted to give you a heads up that if she comes in here talking about me, about our marriage, about any personal stuff, take it with a grain of salt. She's not being entirely honest about what happened." "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that." "Yeah, me too." I ordered a coffee, leaned against the counter. I'm not trying to badmouth her. I just know how these things go. She'll want to control the narrative, make herself look like the victim, and I can't stop her from doing that. But I wanted at least one person to know that there's another side to the story. I appreciate you telling me. The owner handed me my coffee. "For what it's worth, you've always seemed like a good guy. Whatever's happening, I hope it works out." I thanked her and left. It wasn't much, just one small seed of doubt planted in one small corner of Ruth's social circle. But it was a start, because what I was building wasn't one big revelation. It was a slow accumulation of questions, concerns, whispers. 100 small moments where Ruth's version of events didn't quite add up, where people started wondering if maybe she wasn't the victim she claimed to be. That's how you destroy someone's reputation. Not with one explosive accusation, but with a steady erosion of credibility. By the end of the week, I had everything in motion. HR at Ruth's job was investigating. Her social circle was starting to hear that maybe the marriage breakdown wasn't entirely my fault. And Brandon Pierce was walking around his bank knowing that I existed, knowing that I was angry, not knowing what I planned to do next. The uncertainty would eat at him. The waiting. The wondering when the other shoe would drop. And when it finally did drop, it was going to land right on top of everything he'd built. The following Tuesday, Ruth came home from work early. 2 in the afternoon, face blotchy, mascara streaked. She dropped her bag on the floor and just stood there in the entryway. "They're investigating me," she said. I looked up from my laptop. "Who is?" "HR. Someone sent them information about me and Brandon. About the cruise, about dinners, about everything. They called me into a meeting this morning and asked if I'd been having a personal relationship with a client executive. Dan, did I what? Did you report me to my own company? I have no idea what you're talking about." And technically, I didn't lie. The anonymous tip came from an email account that no longer existed, sent by someone who couldn't be traced. As far as anyone could prove, I had nothing to do with it. Ruth sank onto the couch. "They're going to fire me. I know they are. They said it's a conflict of interest, that I should have disclosed the relationship, that it compromises the integrity of the account, as if any of that matters when Brandon and I were going to end up together anyway." "What did you tell them?" "The truth. That Brandon and I developed feelings for each other, that it happened organically, that we're both adults who can make our own decisions. But they don't care. They're acting like I did something wrong when all I did was fall in love." I almost laughed. Fall in love. Like that justified everything. Like romance was some kind of blanket excuse for lying, cheating, and destroying commitments. "What's Brandon saying about all this?" I asked. "He's being supportive. He said if I lose my job, he'll help me find something else. He has connections." "I'm sure he does." Ruth wiped her eyes, looked at me directly. "You're not even trying to hide how much you hate me right now." "I don't hate you, Ruth. I just don't respect you anymore. There's a difference." All of this because I was honest about wanting something more. "You're punishing me for being truthful." "No," I said calmly. "You're facing consequences for your choices. That's not punishment. That's just reality." She left the room. I heard the guest bedroom door slam. Good. Let her panic. Let her start seeing how quickly everything she thought was secure could fall apart when someone started pulling at the right threads. That weekend, I put the next phase into motion. Saturday night, 11:30, I drove downtown to the parking garage where Brandon Pierce kept his BMW. Security was minimal. A camera at the entrance, but no guards, no patrols. I'd been watching the patterns for 2 weeks now. Pierce usually parked on the 4th level, same general area, close to the elevator. I found his car easily. That ridiculous vanity plate made it impossible to miss. I pulled on a pair of work gloves, the kind I wore at the port when handling cargo. Then I got to work. Nothing illegal, nothing damaging, just inconvenient. I loosened the valve caps on all 4 tires. Not enough to cause a flat immediately, but enough that over the next few days his tires would slowly lose pressure. He'd wake up to a car that looked fine but handled wrong. I disconnected the battery cables. Easy fix if you knew what you were looking for, but frustrating and time-consuming if you didn't. And then, the piece de resistance. I took the container of bait fish I'd brought from the port, the stuff we used sometimes for attracting seabirds away from cargo areas. Rotten, putrid, absolutely vile-smelling. I opened his air intake vent, dropped a handful of fish pieces down into the ventilation system, then closed it back up. In a few days, when the summer heat really got into that car, the smell would be unbearable, and it would be nearly impossible to find the source without completely disassembling the dashboard. I finished in under 15 minutes, cleaned up, walked back to my truck, drove home. Ruth was already asleep when I got there. I took a shower, washed away any lingering smell from the bait fish, and went to bed feeling more satisfied than I had in weeks. Monday morning, Ronnie sent me a text. Check Brandon Pierce's social media. I pulled up Brandon's LinkedIn profile. There, posted an hour ago. Dealing with unexpected car troubles today. Reminder to everyone to stay on top of vehicle maintenance. I smiled. Tuesday, Ruth came home agitated again. Brandon's having the worst week, she said, like she expected me to care. Someone vandalized his car, loosened the tires, messed with the battery, and there's this smell he can't get rid of. He's had it in the shop twice and they can't figure out what's wrong. That's terrible, I said flatly. He thinks someone from the bank did it. Maybe a disgruntled client or something. Maybe. Dan, you wouldn't what? Vandalize his car? Ruth? I don't even know where he parks. Besides, you said someone loosened his tires and disconnected his battery. That's not vandalism. That's just petty harassment. Not even worth filing a police report over. She studied me suspiciously, but what could she say? She had no proof, and even if she did suspect me, what was she going to do? Tell Brandon that her husband might have messed with his car? That would just force a confrontation that Brandon probably didn't want. Thursday afternoon, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Mr. Kirk, this is Angela Mendez from Spectrum Advertising. I'm calling regarding the information you sent to our HR department. My stomach tightened. I'm sorry. I think you have the wrong person. I didn't send... Mr. Kirk, we traced the email. We have IT specialists who can track these things even when people try to cover their tracks. I'm not calling to reprimand you. Actually, I'm calling to thank you. Thank me? The information you provided was accurate. We've been conducting our investigation, and it's become clear that Ruth Kirk violated multiple company policies regarding client relationships. We're terminating her employment effective immediately. She'll be notified tomorrow morning. I sat down heavily. I see. I want you to know that we take these matters seriously. What she did put our agency's reputation at risk, potentially damaged our relationship with Harbor Trust Bank, and showed a profound lack of professional judgment. You did the right thing, bringing it to our attention. What happens now? I asked. Ruth will receive a severance package as per her contract. She'll be ineligible for rehire, and we'll be conducting a review of our policies to make sure this doesn't happen again. As for Harbor Trust, we've notified them of the situation as well. What they do with that information is up to their own HR department. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time just processing. Ruth was going to lose her job. Tomorrow. And Harbor Trust now knew about the relationship too, which meant Brandon was probably going to face his own investigation. It was all coming together faster than I'd expected. That evening, I called Aaron. Are you ready? I asked. Ready for what? Ready to make sure this story gets told publicly. Because Ruth's about to be fired, Brandon's about to be investigated, and I need someone who can frame this the right way. Not as a jealous husband seeking revenge, but as a legitimate ethics violation at two separate companies. I'm ready, Aaron said. I've already been doing some preliminary research. Harbor Trust has had issues with this kind of thing before. Brandon Pierce isn't the first executive there to be accused of inappropriate relationships with partner company employees. If I can tie this into a pattern, show that the bank has a culture problem. Dan, this could be a real story. Not just gossip, but actual investigative journalism. Do it. But wait until after Ruth gets fired. I want her to have the full experience. Losing her job, facing the investigation, watching her perfect new relationship start to crack. Then, when she thinks it can't get worse, the story goes public. You're scary when you're methodical, Aaron said. I learned from the best. Every day at work, I track shipments through complicated routes, anticipate problems, build contingency plans. This is just logistics, Aaron. Just making sure everything arrives at its destination exactly when it's supposed to. And what's the destination? Total collapse, I said, for both of them. Friday morning, I left for work early. Didn't want to be home when Ruth got the call from HR. Didn't want to see her face, hear her cry, listen to her try to blame me for consequences she'd brought on herself. Around 9:30, my phone rang. Ruth. I let it go to voicemail. She called 6 more times, left 3 voicemails. Each one progressively more panicked, more angry, more desperate. Finally, around noon, I listened to them. Dan, they fired me. They actually fired me. Because of you. Because you couldn't just let me be happy. Call me back. I know you did this. I know you sent that information to HR. You're trying to destroy my life because you're bitter and angry and you can't stand that I found someone better. Brandon's being investigated too. They're looking into all of his interactions with partner companies. Do you understand what you've done? You've ruined both of our careers over your hurt feelings. Call me back right now. I didn't call her back. Instead, I texted, "Actions have consequences, Ruth. You made your choices. Now you get to live with them." She didn't respond. That evening when I got home, Ruth was packing. Suitcases open on the guest room bed, clothes scattered everywhere. "Where are you going?" I asked from the doorway. "Brandon's, since you've made it impossible for me to stay here." "I didn't make anything impossible. You can stay here until the divorce is finalized. I told you that. I can't be under the same roof as you, not when you're actively sabotaging my life." "I didn't sabotage anything. I just made sure the truth came out. If the truth sabotaged you, that's not my fault." Ruth threw a shirt into her suitcase. "You're proud of yourself, aren't you? Destroying everything I've worked for." "What did you work for, Ruth? A job you were about to lose anyway because you couldn't keep your personal and professional lives separate. A relationship with a man who's done this before with other junior employees. A pregnancy that might not even be your boyfriend's child. Yeah, I'm real jealous of everything you've built. Get out. This is my house too. Then I'll get out." She zipped up one suitcase, grabbed another. "I'll be back for the rest of my stuff later, with Brandon." "Looking forward to it," I said. She left 20 minutes later, car loaded with luggage and boxes. Didn't say goodbye. Just slammed the door hard enough to rattle the frame. I stood in the empty house, surrounded by the remnants of a marriage that had been over for months, even if I hadn't known it. And I didn't feel sad. Didn't feel regret. Just felt ready. Ready for the next phase. Ready to make sure Brandon Pierce got exactly what he deserved. Ready to finish what Ruth had started when she casually announced over breakfast that she'd decided we were in an open relationship. Because we weren't done yet. Not even close. The real reckoning was still coming. The article went live on Tuesday morning. Erin had done her homework. The piece ran in the local business journal's online edition, not huge circulation, but enough to matter in professional circles. The headline read, "Harbor Trust Bank Under Scrutiny for Ethics Violations in Client Relations." The article detailed a pattern of behavior at Harbor Trust, where senior executives, particularly in the VIP Client Relations Department, had been accused multiple times of pursuing inappropriate relationships with employees from partner companies. It named Brandon Pierce specifically, noting the recent investigation into his conduct with Ruth Kirk from Spectrum Advertising. It included quotes from former partner company employees who'd felt pressured or uncomfortable during interactions with Harbor Trust executives, and it included the crews. Erin had pulled the public event roster, noted that both Brandon and Ruth had attended, pointed out that Spectrum's own HR department had found their relationship to be a violation of professional ethics. She'd framed it perfectly. Not as a tawdry affair, but as a systemic problem at a bank that claimed to value integrity and professional conduct. By noon, the article had been shared across local business networks. By evening, it was being discussed on professional forums and social media groups. And by the next morning, Harbor Trust Bank had issued a statement announcing that they were conducting a comprehensive review of their client relations policies and that Brandon Pierce had been placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of an internal investigation. Ruth called me 17 times that day. I answered on the 18th. "You did this," she said immediately. "That article. You and Aaron. You coordinated this whole thing." "The article is based on facts, Ruth. Public records, documented complaints, legitimate concerns about professional ethics. If you and Brandon didn't want to be investigated, you shouldn't have conducted an affair using company resources and client events. They're destroying Brandon's career. He might lose his job, all because you couldn't accept that our marriage was over. Our marriage was over the moment you decided it was, but you didn't just end our marriage, Ruth. You violated professional ethics. You used your work assignment as cover for an affair with a client executive. You spent company time and client access pursuing a personal relationship. Those are the reasons Brandon's being investigated. Not because I'm bitter, because you both broke rules. I'm pregnant, Dan. I'm pregnant and unemployed, and you're making my life impossible. I'm not making your life anything. I'm just making sure the truth is visible. What you do with that is up to you." I hung up. That weekend, I drove past Brandon Pierce's condo building downtown. His BMW was in the parking lot, still probably reeking of rotten fish. The building was nice, expensive, the kind of place that charged premium rent for harbor views and marble lobbies. I wondered how long he'd be able to afford it if he lost his job. Monday evening, I was doing paperwork at the kitchen table when someone started pounding on my front door. Heavy, aggressive knocking that shook the frame. I opened the door. Brandon Pierce stood on my porch, shirt untucked, hair disheveled, face red with anger. "We need to talk," he said. "No thanks." I started to close the door. He shoved his hand against it, pushing it back open. "I said we need to talk. You've been sabotaging me. My car, my job, that article in the business journal. You think I don't know it's you?" "I think you're losing your grip," I said calmly, "and I think you need to take your hand off my door." "Or what? You'll call the police?" "Go ahead. I'll tell them how you've been stalking me, vandalizing my property, destroying my career." "You have no proof of any of that. What you do have is a documented history of inappropriate relationships with junior employees from partner companies. You have an HR investigation that your own bank initiated. And you have a very public ethics scandal that's hurting your reputation. None of that has anything to do with me. That's all you, Brandon. That's all choices you made. Ruth told me everything. How you've been planning this, how you've been manipulating situations, turning people against us. Ruth's unemployed and living with a man who might be about to lose his job. If she thinks I'm the problem, she's as delusional as you are." Brandon took a step closer, aggressive, trying to intimidate me. He had maybe 2 inches on me, probably 20 pounds. Probably thought that mattered. "Stay away from me," he said. "Stay away from Ruth. Stop interfering in our lives or what? Or you'll regret it." I smiled. Actually smiled right in his face. "No, Brandon. You'll regret it. Because right now, you're standing on my property, threatening me, while I'm being completely calm and reasonable. If I wanted to, I could call the police right now and have you removed. I could file a restraining order. I could make your life even more complicated than it already is. But I don't need to, because you're doing a great job of destroying yourself. You're insane. I'm methodical. There's a difference." I stepped back, started closing the door. "Go home, Brandon. Go back to your expensive condo and your damaged car and your suspended job and think really hard about how you got here. Think about all the choices you made that led to this moment. And when you're done thinking, realize that this is only the beginning." I closed the door in his face. Heard him stand there for another minute, heard him swear under his breath, heard him eventually walk away. Through the window, I watched him get into his BMW and drive off. His brake light was out now too, probably hadn't noticed yet. Another small inconvenience waiting to snowball into something more annoying. That's what I'd become good at. Not big dramatic gestures, but small, persistent pressures. Little things that added up, compounded, and turned into major problems. A downfall built from 1,000 tiny cuts, and we were nowhere near 1,000 yet. Harbor Trust Bank fired Brandon Pierce 3 weeks later. The investigation found that he'd violated multiple company policies regarding client relations. They'd interviewed other employees from partner companies, found more instances of inappropriate conduct, built a case that made keeping him impossible. The bank couldn't risk the reputational damage, especially not after Aaron's article had already put them under scrutiny. Ruth called me crying when she heard. He lost everything because of you. He lost everything because he couldn't keep his professional and personal lives separate. Same as you. We're going to sue you for harassment, for defamation, for what? Publishing truth? Making sure your employers knew about ethics violations? Good luck with that lawsuit, Ruth. But make sure you find a good lawyer, preferably one you can actually afford now that neither of you has a job. She hung up on me. I should have felt guilty. Should have felt some kind of remorse about the fact that I'd systematically dismantled two people's careers. But I didn't. Because everything I'd done was based on truth. Ruth and Brandon had violated professional ethics. They'd used company resources for personal gain. They'd lied, cheated, and assumed there wouldn't be consequences. I'd just made sure there were. The divorce papers came through in July. Ruth didn't contest anything. She didn't have the money for a protracted legal battle, and honestly, I think she just wanted it done. We split assets according to what the lawyer recommended. She got half the equity in the house. I kept the house itself, bought out her share. She also got the debt from the cruise and hotels and expensive dinners. The lawyer agreed that since she'd incurred those charges through an extramarital affair, she was solely responsible for them. Ruth tried to argue, but the documentation was clear. Credit card statements, timeline analysis, everything showed that she'd spent our joint money on her relationship with Brandon, so she got to keep the debt. All of it. The paternity test came back in August. The baby was Brandon's. Ruth sent me the results via email, probably thinking it would hurt me. It didn't. It just confirmed what I'd already known. She'd made her choice. Now she got to live with it. By September, Ruth and Brandon had moved in together officially. Some cheap apartment on the south side of town, nowhere near the harbor, nowhere near the life she'd thought she was building. Brandon had found work at a smaller bank, entry-level position, huge pay cut. Ruth was doing freelance marketing work, barely making enough to cover her portion of rent. Aaron kept me updated. Not because I asked, but because she felt like I deserved to know that the consequences were real and lasting. They're struggling, she told me over coffee one afternoon. Ruth's talking about moving back in with her parents after the baby's born. Brandon's bitter, angry, blames everyone but himself. Good, I said. Are you done with all of this? Not yet. I want one more conversation. One final moment where they understand exactly what happened and why. Dan, I'm not going to do anything crazy. I just want closure. Real closure. The kind where I get to walk away knowing they'll remember this for the rest of their lives. Aaron studied me. You've changed. Since all this started. Yeah. I stopped being the guy who accepted whatever people decided to do to him. I became the guy who makes sure actions have consequences. Just don't lose yourself in the anger. I'm not angry anymore, I said. And I meant it. The rage that had burned so hot in those first weeks had cooled into something colder, more controlled. I'm just finished, and I want them to know it. October came. The weather turned colder, wind coming off the harbor sharp enough to cut through jackets. I'd been tracking Brandon's schedule, knew he'd started taking an evening shift at his new bank job to make extra money, knew he walked from the parking lot to the building every evening at 5:30. I waited for him in the parking lot on a Thursday evening, stood near his car, the BMW that still carried a faint smell of rot despite multiple detailing attempts. Brandon saw me as he approached, stopped about 15 feet away, "What do you want?" he asked. "To talk. One last time." "We have nothing to talk about." "We have everything to talk about. Because you still don't understand what happened. You think I destroyed your life out of spite, out of jealousy, but that's not it at all." Brandon moved closer, wary, but curious. "Then why?" "Because you took something that wasn't yours. You saw a woman who was married, who had committed to someone else, and you decided that didn't matter. You used your position, your money, your status to pursue her. And when consequences started catching up, you acted like the victim. Ruth made her own choices. She did, and she's facing her own consequences. But you've done this before. Aaron's article proved it. You have a pattern of pursuing women from partner companies, using your position to impress them, then dropping them when it gets complicated. Ruth wasn't special to you. She was just convenient." Brandon's jaw tightened. "You don't know anything about my relationship with Ruth. I know you're living in a cheap apartment because you lost your job. I know Ruth's pregnant and unemployed. I know you blamed everyone but yourself when the ethics investigation started. That's enough. So what now? You came here to gloat?" "No, I came here to make sure you understand something." I took a step closer. "Every single thing that's happened to you in the past 4 months, every investigation, every consequence, every moment of your life falling apart, that was me. Not because I'm cruel, because I'm thorough, because I don't let people destroy what I've built without making sure they pay for it. You're threatening me. I'm informing you. There's a difference. Threats imply future action. This is just confirmation of past actions." I pulled out my phone, showed him the folder of documentation I'd compiled. Bank statements, event rosters, timeline analyses. Everything I did was legal. Everything I reported was true. And everything you lost because of choices you made. Brandon stared at the phone, then at me. "You're insane. I'm effective, and now we're done. You and Ruth can build whatever life you want together, but you'll always know that someone actually held you accountable. You'll always remember that actions have consequences, and you'll think about that every time you look at your cheap apartment, your entry-level job, your damaged reputation." I walked away before he could respond. Got in my truck, drove out of the parking lot, didn't look back. That should have been enough. Should have been the closure I needed. But it wasn't, because I wanted one more thing. One final confrontation that would seal everything permanently, and I knew exactly where to do it. The harbor at night was colder than I expected. November wind coming off the water, sharp and constant, cutting through my jacket. The loading docks were mostly empty this late, just a few night shift workers securing containers for tomorrow's shipments. I'd told Brandon to meet me here, sent him a text from a burner phone. "Harbor loading docks, Gate 7, midnight. Come alone, or the folder I have on you goes to every bank in the state." I didn't really have any new information. But he didn't know that. And he was desperate enough, angry enough, that he'd come. I waited near the container stacks, tall metal boxes arranged in rows that created corridors and blocked passages. The cranes loomed overhead, motionless giants against the cloudy sky. In the distance, I could hear water lapping against concrete. Brandon arrived at 12:15. I heard his car before I saw it, engine noise echoing across the empty lot. He parked near Gate 7, got out, looked around. "Kirk!" he shouted. "Where are you?" I stepped out from behind a container. "Right here." He walked toward me, movements aggressive, confrontational. "What the hell is this? Another one of your games?" "Not a game, a conversation. We already talked. I'm done with you." But I'm not done with you. I stayed calm, hands in my pockets, voice level. "See, I've been thinking about everything that's happened, about how you pursued Ruth, how you helped her destroy our marriage, how you thought your money and position made you untouchable, and I realized something." "What?" "That men like you never really learn. You'll move on from Ruth eventually, Find another junior employee at another partner company. Do the same thing all over again. Because you think the rules don't apply to you. Brandon stopped about 10 feet away. You don't know anything about me? I know enough. I know you're a predator who uses his job to manipulate women. I know Ruth isn't the first and won't be the last. So what? You brought me here to lecture me? No, I brought you here to show you something. I pulled out a folder from inside my jacket. The same folder I'd shown him before, but thicker now. What's that? Brandon asked. Everything. Every complaint that was ever filed against you at Harbor Trust. Every woman who came forward and was silenced. Every HR report that got buried. That was a lie. But Brandon didn't know that, and the threat was enough. You're bluffing. Am I? Want to take that chance? Because I can send this to every major bank in the state, to industry journals, to professional networks. I can make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of man you are. You think losing your job at Harbor Trust was bad? Wait until you're unemployable anywhere in the region. Brandon's face went red. You vindictive! He lunged. I'd expected it. Wanted it, actually. I sidestepped. He stumbled past me, caught himself on a container. Don't, I said. You've ruined my life, destroyed everything I worked for. And for what? Because your wife didn't want you anymore? Because you helped her betray me. Because you're a predator. Because someone needed to hold you accountable. Brandon charged again. This time I didn't move fast enough. His shoulder caught my chest, knocked me back against a container. The metal was cold through my jacket, hard enough to hurt. You want to fight? Brandon said. Fine, let's fight. He swung, fist aimed at my face, wild and uncoordinated. I ducked, felt the wind from his punch pass over my head. He was off balance now. I shoved him, hard, center of his chest with both hands. He went backward, feet slipping on wet concrete. Fell hard on his back, head bouncing off the ground with a sound that made me wince. Stay down, I said. He didn't. Got to his hands and knees, tried to stand. I kicked his supporting arm out from under him, not hard enough to break anything but enough to drop him face first into a puddle of oily water. I said stay down. Brandon coughed, spat water, tried to push himself up again. This is assault, he gasped. You attacked me first, I'm defending myself. Big difference. I heard footsteps, turned. Ruth was running toward us from the direction of the parking lot. She must have followed Brandon. Stop! She screamed. Both of you, stop! She reached us out of breath, terrified. Looked at Brandon on the ground, then at me standing over him. Dan, what are you doing? Finishing this. By beating him up? This is insane. He attacked me. I defended myself. That's not insane. That's basic cause and effect. Brandon got to his feet slowly, using a container for support. His face was scratched, shirt soaked with dirty water. He looked pathetic, broken. Good. You're both crazy, Ruth said. Dan, you need help. This obsession with destroying us, it's not healthy. I'm not obsessed. I'm thorough. And I'm done. I held up the folder. This is everything, every document, every piece of evidence, every record of what you two did. I could release it, could ruin Brandon even more thoroughly than I already have, could make sure Ruth never works in advertising again, but I'm not going to. What? Brandon said. I'm not going to release it, because I don't need to. You've already lost everything that matters, your job, your reputation, your future prospects. Ruth's living with her parents, scrambling for freelance work, about to be a single mother to your child. You're both exactly where you deserve to be. I walked past them, heading back toward my truck. Dan, Ruth started. Don't. We're done, Ruth. You made your choice. You get to live with it. But I want you to remember something. I turned back to look at them, both standing there in the cold November night, looking small and defeated. Every time something goes wrong in your life from now on, every time things don't work out the way you planned, you'll wonder if maybe it's because of what you did. Maybe it's karma. Maybe it's cause and effect, but you'll always wonder, and that's enough for me. I walked away, got in my truck, drove off, left them standing there in the cold, left them to build whatever life they could from the wreckage of their choices. December brought snow. Rare for the harbor city, but it came down steady that week before Christmas, covering the shipping containers and dock machinery in white. Work slowed down, shipments delayed, everyone moving careful on icy walkways. I spent Christmas alone. Didn't mind it. Actually preferred it to the awkward family gatherings Ruth used to drag me to. Aaron called on Christmas Day. "How are you doing?" "Good. Really good, actually." "No regrets?" "About what?" "About everything. The revenge. The systematic destruction of Ruth and Brandon's lives." "They destroyed their own lives, Aaron. I just made sure there were consequences." "How's Ruth doing?" I asked, even though I didn't really care. "Baby's due in February. She's living with her parents, working part-time remotely for some startup that probably won't last. Brandon comes around sometimes, but they fight constantly. Word is they'll be broken up before the baby's born." "Sounds about right." After I hung up, I sat in my living room, looking at the snow falling outside. The house was quiet, peaceful, mine. I'd kept everything that mattered: my job, my reputation, my house, my self-respect. Ruth had lost everything, all because she thought she could blow up our marriage without consequences. January brought the court date for our final divorce hearing. Just a formality. We'd already agreed to everything: divided assets, signed papers. Ruth showed up pregnant, exhausted, defeated. Brandon didn't come with her. The hearing took 15 minutes. Judge reviewed our agreement, stamped the papers. Done. We walked out of the courthouse together, neither of us speaking. Snow had started falling again. "Dan," Ruth said as we reached the parking lot, "can we talk? We just spent 15 minutes in court officially ending our marriage. I think we've talked enough. Please, just 5 minutes." I checked my watch. 5 minutes. We stood near my truck. Ruth pulled her coat tighter around her pregnant belly. "I'm sorry," she said. "For all of it. For how I handled things. For not being honest sooner." "Okay? That's it? Just okay?" "What do you want me to say, Ruth? That I forgive you? That we can be friends? That's not going to happen. Brandon and I broke up last week. He couldn't handle the stress, the baby, the consequences. He's moving to a different state, starting over somewhere people don't know about the scandal. Running away. That's very on brand for him. I'm going to be a single mother with no job prospects and no support system. Is that enough revenge for you? Are you satisfied?" I looked at her, really looked at her, saw the exhaustion in her eyes, the way her shoulders slumped, the complete absence of the entitled confidence she used to carry. "Yeah," I said. "I'm satisfied. You're heartless. I'm realistic. You wanted a new life, Ruth. Congratulations. You got one. Just not the one you imagined." I started to get in my truck. Ruth grabbed my arm. "Don't you feel anything? Any regret about what you did?" "What I did?" "Ruth, I exposed the truth. I made sure your employers knew about ethics violations. I documented illegal use of company resources. That's not heartless. That's just smart. You orchestrated the entire thing. You planned it, manipulated situations, turned people against us. I made sure the truth was visible. That's different. Everything I exposed was real. You really did have an affair. Brandon really did violate professional ethics. All I did was make sure people knew about it. If the truth destroyed you, that's not my fault." Ruth let go of my arm, tears running down her face now. "I just wanted to be happy," she said. "Then you should have been honest. Should have ended our marriage properly before starting something new. But you didn't. And now you get to live with it." I got in my truck, started the engine. Ruth stood there in the parking lot, crying, pregnant, alone. I drove away without looking back. Because we were done. Finally, completely, permanently done. The harbor at night was colder than I expected. November wind coming off the water, sharp and constant, cutting through my jacket. The loading docks were mostly empty this late, just a few night shift workers securing containers for tomorrow's shipments. I'd told Brandon to meet me here, sent him a text from a burner phone. Harbor loading docks, gate 7, midnight. Come alone, or the folder I have on you goes to every bank in the state. I waited near the container stacks, tall metal boxes arranged in rows. The cranes loomed overhead, motionless giants against the cloudy sky. Brandon arrived at 12:15. I heard his car before I saw it. He parked near gate 7, got out, looked around. "Kirk!" he shouted. "Where are you?" I stepped out from behind a container. "Right here." He walked toward me, movements aggressive. "What the hell is this?" "A conversation. We already talked. I'm done with you. But I'm not done with you." I stayed calm, hands in my pockets. Men like you never really learn. You'll move on from Ruth eventually, find another junior employee, do the same thing all over again. Brandon stopped about 10 feet away. "You don't know anything about me." I pulled out a folder from inside my jacket. "Everything. Every complaint that was ever filed against you at Harbor Trust. Every woman who came forward and was silenced. Every HR report that got buried." That was a lie. But Brandon didn't know that. "You're bluffing." "Am I? Want to take that chance? Because I can send this to every major bank in the state. I can make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of man you are." Brandon's face went red. "You vindictive—" He lunged. I'd expected it. I sidestepped. He stumbled past me, caught himself on a container. "Don't," I said. "You've ruined my life. Destroyed everything I worked for. Because you helped her betray me. Because you're a predator. Because someone needed to hold you accountable." Brandon charged again. His shoulder caught my chest, knocked me back against a container. The metal was cold, hard enough to hurt. He swung, fist aimed at my face, wild and uncoordinated. I ducked. He was off balance. I shoved him, hard, center of his chest with both hands. He went backward, feet slipping on wet concrete, fell hard on his back. "Stay down," I said. He didn't, got to his hands and knees. I kicked his supporting arm out from under him. He dropped face first into a puddle of oily water. I said, "Stay down." I heard footsteps. Ruth was running toward us from the parking lot. "Stop!" she screamed. "Both of you, stop!" She reached us out of breath, terrified. Looked at Brandon on the ground, then at me. "Dan, what are you doing?" "Finishing this." Brandon got to his feet slowly, using a container for support. His face was scratched, shirt soaked with dirty water. He looked pathetic, broken. "You're both crazy," Ruth said. "This obsession with destroying us, it's not healthy." "I'm not obsessed. I'm thorough. And I'm done." I held up the folder. "This is everything. Every document, every piece of evidence. I could release it, could ruin Brandon even more. But I'm not going to." "What?" Brandon said. "I'm not going to release it, because I don't need to. You've already lost everything that matters. Your job, your reputation, your future. Ruth's living with her parents, about to be a single mother. You're both exactly where you deserve to be." I walked past them, heading back toward my truck. "Dan," Ruth started. "Don't. We're done, Ruth. But I want you to remember something." I turned back to look at them. "Every time something goes wrong in your life from now on, you'll wonder if maybe it's because of what you did, and that's enough for me." I walked away, got in my truck, drove off, left them standing there in the cold November night at the harbor's edge, two broken figures against the container stacks. Brandon was still dripping with oily water, Ruth clutching her pregnant belly, both of them staring after my taillights as I disappeared into the darkness. I didn't look back in the mirror, didn't need to. Their faces in that moment, the complete defeat, the realization that they'd lost everything while I drove away untouched. That image was already burned into my memory. The harbor lights faded behind me. The city opened up ahead, full of possibilities, full of a future that was entirely mine. No Ruth, no Brandon, no betrayal, just me, victorious, free. This was the moment I'd been building toward since that morning over breakfast toast. Not just revenge, total victory. They'd opened the door. I'd walked through it and burned everything behind me.